Good morning to all of you. It's good to see you on this channel once again. And today we are going to talk about news behind the news. But let me tell you that I'm R.N. Bhaskar from BKBB, an acronym for Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein. This is something that we come at 8:15 in the morning every day on weekdays, Monday to Friday. And today my co-anchors are Jahnavi. Jahnavi, welcome. Katya, welcome again. And Sanjay, welcome to you too. And the three co-anchors are going to discuss three very interesting topics. And the first one is about GST, the government's festive offer to India. The second one is about how beyond tariffs, there are other complications with transshipment. And the third is about how India's borrowings are increasing. ECBs to be precise. And let's take the first title first. Jahnavi, could you come in and talk about the GST?
Yes, so the GST Council has just announced one of the biggest overhauls of India's tax system since it was introduced in 2017. And after a 10-hour-long meeting, they have finally decided to scrap the 12% and 28% tax slabs and move to a simpler two slab structure of 5% and 18%. And now these new rates will come in starting September 22nd. So, what does this mean for us consumers? A wide range of everyday items are about to get much cheaper than before, like your milk and paneer, medicines. They'll now attract zero GST, and common household items like toothpaste, bicycles, sauces, chocolates, coffee, they're all going to be taxed at just 5%. And even bigger items like washing machines and air conditioners will now see a drop from 28% to just 18%. So hotel stays as well are going to be more affordable, and most importantly, health and life insurance plans will be fully exempt from GST, which is a major relief for these households. But not everything is settled just yet. States ruled by opposition parties have raised concerns over possible revenue losses, and there are still some gray areas, especially regarding compensation for luxury goods and sin goods like cigarettes, which will now continue to face higher taxation, almost up to 40%. So, from a broader perspective, these cuts could be a welcome boost to household consumption, and they could ease inflationary pressures in the short term. But on the other hand, they may strain government revenues at a time when states are already worried about compensation. So the real test here will be whether higher consumption can actually, in fact, balance out the tax losses in the months that follow. So, what do you think about that, sir?
Well, it's good news. Anything that reduces taxes is always good news. It means that a reduction in taxes will mean the government becomes more efficient in the way it uses money. That's one thing. Whether the consumption will go up depends a lot on purchasing power. Till employment goes up, purchasing power is not going to grow up. There was a section of the population that was impervious to purchasing power because they're wealthy. So rain or shine, they would always purchase goods. They will not increase their purchases, they won't reduce their purchases. The middle class is already hurt because of unemployment and because of the shrinking of the economy. The government needs to address that as well. But tax cuts are good, especially because in India you already pay income tax and you also pay GST. That was not fair. And so I'm glad that it has happened. Thank you, Jahnavi, for bringing this out. And that takes us to the next story, which is interesting, on tariffs and transshipment. Katya, could we have you?
So good news to bad news. So basically, a lot of experts. This is from the Ilara conference that was recently conducted. There are a lot of economists and experts that said that U.S. tariffs are not going to go away very soon. Even if they go away, even if we have small court wins, where courts have declared that these tariffs U.S. is putting are illegal. U.S. courts have said that, but even then it's not going to help because they say that Trump is determined to punish India for many issues, for reasons logical and illogical. It's going to happen. So, the stress on India-US relations and trade is going to stay. So, what are the other options? The other options are to actually, to look for other markets, which everybody say, but that's also not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of because a lot of countries have got tariffs. A lot of countries are going to chase the other markets, non-US markets as well. But what India could do, a lot of supply chain experts is that concentrate a lot more on value addition. Currently, even though we have, we have exemptions, even both with pharma and with semiconductor chips and electronic products. But both in one case we do assembly, in the second case we import APIs. So we are not doing full value addition. So transshipment rules could change in the new world order, which means the buyer could ask how much value add did you do in this country. So which means India could lose. And second thing, they could also ask what percentage of your product is from China, is from Malaysia, is from Korea. So for example, I'll have to explain, I have to break down how much I'm sourcing from my supplier, how much my supplier is sourcing from China, etc., etc. So the amount of product and material used by a certain country will also have to be accounted for. Whether it's acceptable or not is a different thing. So that is the biggest transshipment challenge that could happen in the new world order. World order is going to change. It's not going to remain same. So very interestingly, an economist put it, what India did in the 90s, which is open its market and see what happens. What US is now doing, it's closing its market to see what happens. So the world order will change. There are going to be a lot more complications. So Indian companies will have to be a lot more accountable and go deeper into the value chain. So what is your opinion, sir?
Well, the tensions are going to continue. Trump is, according to some papers, Trump is already thinking of more tariffs against India.
Right.
India, on the other hand, has offered zero duty for American goods.
Mm.
And this ding dong will continue. India doing the appeasement business, America doing the threatening business. Let's see. The answer is very simple. The answer is India will have to look for new markets. And India can find new markets if it looks at the ASEAN region, if it looks at the Latin American region. Look at what China has done with Venezuela.
Mm.
Go to the Latin American markets, go to the African markets, go to the Southeast Asian markets. Don't depend on America. Well, let's see. All things will happen. Let's take the third story anyway now. And that is Sanjay. He was going to talk about borrowings. Sanjay, come in.
So between April and June of 2025, India experienced a strong rise in external commercial borrowings or ECB inflows. To put it simply, these are loans that Indian companies take from lenders abroad to meet their investment or business needs. The latest data from Reserve Bank of India shows that the net ECB inflows during this quarter reached about $4.6 billion. This is a sharp increase compared to the same period last year, when the inflows stood only at $2.8 billion. Now, what makes this trend quite interesting is the way it has unfolded. On one hand, the number of new ECB registrations, meaning fresh proposals for overseas loans, actually came down. Yet, on the other hand, the amount of money flowing in went up significantly. This shows that companies are now tapping into loans and funds that were already approved earlier, rather than rushing to register new ones. In other words, they are drawing on existing commitments, which signal a more cautious, calculated approach. Why might this be happening? One possible reason is that global financial conditions are a bit uncertain, with interest rates and policies abroad constantly shifting. Companies may not want to take too many fresh borrowings in such an environment, but they still need funds to keep their projects running. So instead of adding no new debt, they are wisely using what's already available. At the same time, other forms of capital raising, such as IPOs or funds meant for new capital expenditure, were slightly lower compared to the previous quarter. Yet the overall picture remains positive because inflows through ECBs provide a steady cushion of liquidity. This suggests that while businesses are slowing down on aggressive fundraising, they're not short of financial support when needed. The bigger takeaway here is that overseas lenders and investors still trust India's economic potential. The fact that inflows are growing, even when registrations are slowing, reflects a steady vote of confidence in the Indian market. For Indian firms, it is almost like taking a pause to catch their breath, using what's already in the toolkit before running out to borrow more. So the April to June quarter can be seen as a phase of balance and consolidation. Companies are ensuring that money continues to flow into the system while also being careful about future commitments. It is a mix. It is a mix of confidence and caution, which is probably the right approach in today's unpredictable global economy. What do you think, sir?
You're right about this. And ECB is rising, for me at least, is a worrisome sign. It's a worrisome sign because of two reasons. Any kind of borrowing is a little worrisome, especially because interest rates are fluctuating, currency risk is great. But there's a second reason why. At the macro level, you will see many Indians are pushing their own money outside, which means investments overseas are increasing than the money that's coming inside. And over that, you take borrowing, which means that you don't want to trust your own money in India. You'd rather use borrowed money in India, and your own money you prefer sending it overseas. At the macro level, I find this divergence and this trend a little worrying. But let's see what happens. And the money managers and companies know better than I would ever know. Thanks a lot, and thanks, Sanjay. And that brings me to the very end of today's session, except for two things. I have to discuss comments, but before I discuss comments, I have to tell you about the usual reminders. Please click the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already. Please click the like button. It helps us immensely. And most importantly, please tell all your friends about us. That helps us grow faster. And now let us take the questions and answers, the questions and comments. And the first question is on GST and transshipment. What kind of problems are there in transshipment? Katya, would you like to answer that?
So currently there are two types of transshipments. One is where you unload a transshipment and you load it back at a port. So that's legal, that nobody has a problem with it. The second one is illegal, where you bring something, you label it that it's made in whatever country, and then you do it. That's illegal. That's anywhere not. The second and third are more complicated, where people would go deep into the value addition as well as the percentage of goods that are, goods and raw materials that are not there. So those two are going to be possible in the new order, where there'll be multipolarity, there'll be regionalism, where products will go everywhere. You have to be a lot more accountable for how much work you do, what kind of material you use. So that's going to, which means our manufacturing, especially Indian manufacturing system, has to grow, deepen, become more complicated, build its ancillary system and value chain very well. So that is the problem, and that is a challenge. But while a lot of it is gloom and doom, India can do it. If there is the will, there will be a
Yes.
way. So that's what a lot of experts said. Not everything is lost. It's going to be difficult, but it's not impossible. But we have to have the will for it.
Which means that the US, for example, could insist on giving the entire chain of origin from where each component comes and then decide the
Right.
percentages.
So this is not a bad way to beat the thing if you are
I agree.
sanctioning, and it is their way, whether it's right or wrong. But you will have to be a lot more accountable. You cannot mask things in a new world order. Like, it would be a manufacturer will have to be become more transparent, and that's a
Yes.
very big challenge.
Thanks. And that takes me to the second question that's come in. ECBs may require regulation because this could be round tripping in could be in a volatile dollar situation. Is that correct? Yes. In a volatile currency situation, any kind of borrowing is bigger risk. And that's the premium on currency and borrowings shoot up whenever the financial markets, currency markets are volatile. At that time, when you borrow and borrowing increase, for me, is always worrisome. And that takes me to the third question, which is on GST. Will consumption go up? As I've always said, the people are rich, are already consuming. Lower taxes, higher taxes don't make any difference. That consumption level will remain more or less constant. The second category, which is the upper middle class, even there consumption remains more or less constant. It's the middle class and the poor where consumption matters. And for that, you need a vibrant employment situation and you need a vibrant farm sector. The government's farm laws are still very shaky. And the government's ability to create an environment where more jobs can be created is also extremely worrisome. Well, we'll have to live and see. But the fact that taxes have come down is always good news. And that takes me to the end of today's session. Thank you for being with us. And yes, have a wonderful day ahead. I look forward to seeing you once again tomorrow. Take care.